may start.
Okay, welcome. We're glad you're able to join us from wherever you are in the world. Let's see, it's afternoon here in The Hague. My name is Jeff Handmaker. I'm the convener of the ISS Migration Masters track, actually Migration and Diversity Masters track, Institute of Social Studies. And I'm joined by...
My name is Vitus Yeleware Domevi. I'm from Ghana and a student of the Migration and Diversity track.
So we're really happy again that you can join us as we're going to talk a little bit about what the GMD program, as acronym is known, is all about. So we're very proud about the fact that our university, Erasmus University, and of course ISS as part of this university, is doing quite well in its teaching in the field of social science management, and of course particularly development studies. But we're just actually going to get straight into what the ISS MA in Development Studies is, and also how it features in what is ultimately an inter-university, inter-faculty teaching program. So we're going to talk about both. What's also important to point out is even though we are part of Erasmus University Rotterdam, we are not in Rotterdam, at least not at the moment. We're in The Hague, what we like to speak of as Erasmus by the sea. So we are on the coast. It's a coastal city, smaller than Rotterdam, but very much within this this community of the southern Holland, which is the most heavily populated part of the Netherlands. So let me just get straight into what the Governance of Migration and Diversity Masters Track GMD is. Well, it features as one of six majors, excuse me, within the MA in Development Studies program at ISS. We've been around since 1952, as most of you have probably gathered. So we've been doing this for some time, and in that course of the last, well, 68 years, if I'm not mistaken, we've generated, well, more than 15,000 alumni all across the world. And you can see in this map here where our alumni are coming from, of course, mainly within, coming from the global south. So we are a university institute of Erasmus University Rotterdam since 2009. Our main campus is still in Rotterdam. And in addition to this relationship, we have various other homes and partners around the world. One of which is the partnership with the University of Leiden and Delft University, LDE. We can talk a bit about that more in a moment. So The Hague, being the city of peace and justice, is something we also want to talk about a bit. We're also part of the Serious Research School in Development Studies. Actually, the secretariat is here at our institute, where Andrew Fisher, Dr. Andrew Fisher, is director of. And we have partnerships with universities in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in the United States, in South Africa, in Palestine, with the Central European University, now moving to Vienna because of the political difficulties in Hungary nowadays, and many other universities around the world. We also contribute to teaching programs in Suriname, in Ecuador, in Indonesia, India, and elsewhere in the world. So to introduce now maybe our migration teaching staff, I'm the current convener of the teaching program. We have another colleague who's going to be joining us in a couple of months. Kathy Wilcock is also part of the teaching team. She's a postdoc in migration issues here at ISS. Helen Hinchins, who's been conducting research and has been teaching in the field of migration for many, many years, is one of our core staff members, as is Karen Siegmann, who is currently running our core program here at ISS, teaching program on migration and development, and Anthony Otieno, another postdoc who's also involved in thesis paper supervision and also some teaching on the migration program. So now going back to this collaborative nature of the teaching program. Well, Vitus is traveling to different cities in the Netherlands, which is one of the nice features of this program. Well, we'll hear more about that in a moment, but just to kind of give a bird's eye view about what composes this collaborative and interdisciplinary teaching program. Apart from the core course in the governance of migration and diversity, which I'm going to talk about a bit more in a moment, there are specific courses on the politics of migration. Our Department of Public Administration at Erasmus University Rotterdam is running this course. The sociology of migration, also in this case, obviously, the Department of Sociology at Erasmus University is teaching this component. We obviously are taking up the migration and development component, whereas the history of migration is taught by the renowned history department at Leiden University. And then finally, with our colleagues at TU University Delft, mainly more of an applied or more technical sciences university, they teach a course called Social Inequality in the City, Diversity and Design. We're really speaking about the intersection of different aspects of migration that go well beyond the social dimensions, but also the architecture, indeed, of migration, which is really important. So with all of these partners, teaching partners in the program, you end up with a really rich and varied teaching program. So, and it all starts with a core course in governance of migration and diversity. And I'm going to ask Vitas in a moment maybe to give some feedback on how he experienced that course. At least what the instructors aim to do in this course is to integrate across the perspectives in other courses in the major, the history, politics, and sociology dimensions, to focus on this really core theme of governance. How do these different organizations and groups interact with each other? And it's done by way of seminars and site visits, concluding with a long essay of students' own choosing. So Vitas, how did you experience this core course?
Thank you, Jeff. I think it was one of the very exciting parts of the program. For me, especially the visit to the EU was very insightful. We got the opportunity to interact with policymakers. So we had
in Brussels.
In Brussels.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to ask them all the theories we've been studying in class, and then we also had the opportunity to quiz them on what are some of the background knowledge or why certain policies, how did they come up with those policies. So it was really a very insightful visit. So that's and then with Leiden, we had a site visit at the mosque, which gave us history in terms of religion, and then integration, how migrants from a different religious background integrated into the Netherlands, and how the challenges, the successes that are involved in their stay in the Netherlands. So this course, I really recommend it, and you won't regret following this course. Yeah,
nice.
I don't.
With the component that was taught here at ISS, we had colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs, yes.
And not easy to get busy ministry officials to come and spend 2 hours with the students.
Yes.
In the end, they sent 6 of the representatives, and it was a really rich discussion, critical interaction with the students. They were very open to being cross-examined, so to speak, on the ministry's policy.
That's rare.
And of course, that's also something which is special about this course, and the real significance and the feature of governance also in foreign policy in the Netherlands. So it's about the governance of migration, but it's indeed also about diversity. So it recognizes that migration is about people, movements of people, and not just how to regulate different border control regimes. It's about the nature of migration, the way in which people also experience shifts in their identity as they move across boundaries. Obviously, it's also about what it is that drives people to move from one country to another, and the consequences of being in a further country, the so-called push and pull factors, but it's absolutely not limited to that. It recognizes that migrants have very long-term relations with the societies that they've migrated to. It interrogates the processes of becoming part of the new society, the very contested programs of integration, policies around that, as well as the experiences of going through integration. conflict is a big part of it as well, inevitable, both in generating migration, but also in the societies where they arrive. And not necessarily being a negative thing. It's recognizing that conflict is an inevitable part of the human condition and can sometimes be a very productive way of dealing with resistance when things don't go the way they should do in a liberal democratic society. So with regards to how ISS gives a particular flavor to the GMD program, it's again important to emphasize that students have as their entry point to the inter-university program a footing in one of the participating institutions. Yeah. And in this case, of course, visas and others, students who are participating in the ISS component are based here at ISS, which has its emphasis on migration and development. And what we seek to do, certainly in this program, is to recognize that there are a variety of reasons that compel one to migrate. We try to emphasize also human security as opposed to state security. This whole process of securitization, recognize that the securitization needs also to recognize the human security dimension. As with any other course that we're teaching here at ISS, it involves many different dimensions, many different levels of governance, and above all, a very interdisciplinary approach to learning. We recognize that there's an important distinction between what are migration regimes, policy regimes, but also regimes of enforcement and systems that are in place that to which migrants are involved with. Also social systems, also cultural systems, which are very often in contestation with the policies that are in place to regulate migration. And above all, it is something which affects all of us. It's not something which is just a migration problem the way we see it. We certainly do not see it like that. We see it as something which everyone in society is impacted by. Indeed, most people in countries of the world can certainly trace their heritage to having been migrants themselves. So heritage is a big theme that we talk about here at ISS as well. Okay, now about maybe the logistics of this course. How is it that you manage to take courses at Leiden University one day and then maybe another course in Rotterdam? How is it that you experience traveling to different cities?
Yes, in all the excitement, but yeah, I have to also just be frank that there's a lot of traveling involved, and it can be very stressful sometimes. Yes, but that's the advantage of traveling around and not just confined to ISS, meeting different caliber of students from the various universities in Delft and then in Leiden and Erasmus. The environment is quite different, so we have shared experiences from the various campuses. We also have the advantage of the online libraries of all these universities. It's not so far away. Delft is just about 10 kilometers. That's just 15 minutes most by train. Personally, I'm trying to explore riding to Delft from ISS.
Okay.
Yeah, one of these days I want to try it. Leiden is about 15 minutes by a train, so it's also doable. I think the farthest is Erasmus, which is about 35 minutes. You don't really have clashes of timetable, as in one course today in Delft and the other one in Erasmus. So that's the aspect that is quite good. There are few times that we have to travel from Leiden to Erasmus, but that was in term 1, and we had a 2-hour time break that we could, travel and then be in time for lectures. Right. So it's been exciting. Yeah, we are privileged to have 3 groups of families: ISS, Delft, and then Erasmus, and then yeah. So it's a shared experience, and then it's been a very good one. Yeah.
And we get a little bit of a taste of this rich experience when the entire group of students comes to the Institute of Social Studies at various moments in the teaching program. At this particular moment in time, with the Teaching the Migration and Development course, we do have the entire coterie of students, about 50 students from all the different universities who come together at the Institute. And that's indeed pretty exciting and dynamic atmosphere. So you can see some pictures of the different cities which are affiliated with the program. Leiden, as Avitas mentioned, is about as far away as Delft, roughly about 10 kilometers each. Rotterdam, very relevant city for the purposes of a program on governance, migration, and diversity, being a very long-standing port city. In fact, my heritage, if you're going back to my great-great-great-grandparents, came from Eastern Europe, probably through the port of Rotterdam on their way to the United States. It's a modern city. It's certainly very much a migrant city. It's a very diverse place. The Hague, of course, I've been living here for, I guess, about 20 years now. It's known as the city of peace and justice, the city of international law, certainly also the city of government. There are many international organizations based here in The Hague, the European Patent Office, International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, as you see pictured here. Many, many different NGOs, and it's got a beach.
The beach.
How's the beach?
I cannot wait for summer.
It's a nice beach.
It's very nice.
So there are also these opportunities for relaxing as well, which is a very important part of the learning process as well. So something which is important to us in our teaching program is also how it interrelates with what we research. So I conduct research on migration. My other colleagues who I mentioned earlier also conduct research on migration. One of the research projects, which was a few years ago, was this very big project on migration, gender, and social justice, involving colleagues from different parts of mainly the global south. And it forms part of our core curriculum. If you want to consult this book, for example, we publish it on an open access basis, so you can access the entire book for free. And that might give you a bit more of an insight into what it is that is inspiring us also to teach migration and diversity. Another very interesting, important, and recent development is the founding of what's known as the LDE, the Leiden-Delft Erasmus Center for Migration and Diversity. And I've included a link to the website of the Center for Migration and Diversity. This is really aiming to be the space where migration and diversity research in the Netherlands is going to be concentrated. It also is going to concentrate both professional and academic teaching programs. So it's really taking to the next level the collaborative arrangements between our different institutions. So, in addition to the courses that you will be taking as part of the inter-university collaborative GMD course, there's an opportunity to take ISS courses in migration and development, which students from the other programs may also take, but generally speaking, these are the courses that are offered to students who are enrolled in the ISS Migration Masters track. So for example, migrant children is something which is of real interest to many of our students. So children and youth studies provides that opportunity. Human rights is one of our core majors, specializations here in our teaching program. I spoke about it in the previous webinar. Securitization, a theme very much relevant to migration. It is also something you can study much more deeply in the context of that particular course. The relationship between violent conflict and media is something which we teach here as well. And the dynamics between conflict and disasters. Some of these courses here, what are some of the courses that you've decided to pursue, Vitas, of interest?
I think I'm interested in violence, conflict, media, and politics of representation. Yeah, because I'm looking at what politics are involved in conflicts, and then obviously conflicts are a major determinants of migration. Yep. So I'm interested in how media portrays how politics plays between the key players in terms of conflict.
Yeah.
So that's the specialization I'll be going for in term 3.
Indeed. Okay. So you can shape your study program quite a bit, particularly towards the end of the study program. And that's one of the things that we're very happy about here.
And if you are confused, do not worry.
Yeah.
The teachers are very friendly. They are so down to earth, and they'll guide you through your interest areas. They don't force anything on you. So if you are seeing these as broad areas that you are confused, don't worry. When you come, just interact with them, and then you'll be very comfortable.
Embrace the confusion. So within the MA program at ISS, the MA Development Studies program, it is a 15.5-month program, so it's slightly longer than the other tracks, which are part of the GMD. Graduation is around middle of December, and it therefore has a bit more workload than the other programs in the sense that the final research paper is a really important part of the overall grade. And that, in addition to that, there's an opportunity to take an additional course, which allows you to respond to your interests and enables you to shape your own study program. So when you first arrived, did you take foundation courses?
I did.
Yes.
And that was like the eye opener, just trying to open your mind to what is development really about, and then it opens you up and it makes you question development from your own nuances, from your own experiences, and then you are given the opportunity to, question what has been going on in the mainstream. Sure. So the foundation courses were really relevant for us, and it also kind of grounded our study here into the various majors that are here.
You may have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals. Many people are interested in development. Of course, I've heard of these goals. This is something which is a real focus of the general course, which more broadly introduces students to development studies. And this, of course, it extends also all the way into term 3 with encounters in development studies. Both of these courses are a compulsory part of the program. Alongside all of that, there's a possibility to also, in the context of crafting your own research program, your own study program, to take research techniques which are very specific to the kind of approach you would like to take in the context of your research paper. So there's a general course for those who are not altogether sure what research techniques you might want to use. And for those who maybe have more of a background in research methodologies, there is a possibility of taking more specialized courses, such as discourse analysis or ethnographic research or case study research. We're going more deeply into quantitative or qualitative methods of research. So all these designed to contribute to the research paper process in which students are guided by academic staff quite closely, in fact, in producing the final and most significant, substantial part of the contribution to the study program, the term 4 research paper. Am I missing anything here, Lucas?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Then let me push on. It is possible to specialize, as we heard a moment ago. It's not necessary to specialize, and that's really important to emphasize. This is really the opportunity to get into choose courses that you are interested in. It may well be that you want to pursue these topics in your research paper, or it could be that they are relevant to your career, or it could be there's simply courses that you are interested in. So curious to hear from you, Vitas, what compelled you to make the choices that you did for your term 2 and 3 courses?
I must say that I was really constrained by time. I would have loved to at least audit most of the courses because they are so relevant to development. But I just have a personal interest in migration. So I was kind of geared towards the specializations centered around migration. Right. So that pushed me to choosing those courses. But at least I took an optional course in policy design and analysis because of my job background. I think that it will help me when I complete my master's. Yeah.
So apart from crafting your study program along your particular study interests, there's an opportunity to participate in the learning process in other ways as well. Let me touch a little bit upon that. But the first, say, formal way in which you can participate in the learning process, and I think you've got the slide here on the Teaching and Learning Committee, the TLC. This involves, in addition, alongside academic staff, who are of course more long-term members of the TLC, 3 student members. And these members are able to really help debate, discuss, and really interrogate our teaching program here at ISS. Vitas is a class representative of the migration batch here at ISS, and these the different groups are also involved in helping to elect the student class president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer that represent the student body here at the Institute. Other social activities, there's a study visit, which we'll probably be organizing in the summer because of some scheduling conflicts, and that's also going to be taking, it's a really important part of the study program. And it's subsidized through the program, the study visit that is. So we're able to go through some interesting places usually. So this, I think, is arguably one of the most important slides of all, and that's why it's special to study at the ISS. Well, it's special because we are a community here. We're a supportive community. We seek to inspire ourselves and each other, and it stems from the fact that we do come from many different backgrounds, both the teaching staff and, of course, our students. We've worked in development practice, many of us. I used to work as a human rights lawyer way back then. And we try to also explore our differences between each other. What it is that we have in common, and what it is that makes us distinctive, socially, culturally, and obviously academically. It's important, of course, I'm a human rights lawyer, so rights are very important to me. But in addition to, say, the human rights which every human has, it's important to recognize that students at ISS have the right to a safe environment in which to study, a healthy environment in which to study. We take this very, very seriously, and we follow this up with counselors. We have a student welfare office, which is very much there to support you. We have persons of confidence who are also there to listen to your concerns, which we hope you will never have, but if you do, this is part of our support network. Many ISS services, we have pretty darn good IT department, I have to say. Quite impressive facilities, if I may say so. You've already heard about the online bibliographic references from not just ISS and Erasmus University, but indeed all participating universities. Yeah. So really a really wide access also to ebooks, academic books, and so forth. So you do have indeed the right to a quality education, which is something we also do our very best to maintain. Because as students, there are responsibilities always, but not just, of course, to do one's best, but to make a contribution to this ISS community, and we're very proud of that as well.
Yeah. Especially diversity. This is a really diverse community, and then you are, as he said, it's a very safe environment. You are not restricted in speaking up, and then as he already says, they have very good support systems, and you're not rushed. You are not forced into doing things, and then you just have the liberty to discuss when you have any problem with lecturers. There's a counseling team which is very good, and then they listen to you whenever you are having challenges. So it's really a safe environment to be here.
Yeah, glad to hear that. So we are on social media, all over social media. So don't hesitate to check us out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter and the like. Many of our activities, really special ones, are live streamed. So for example, tomorrow evening, we're going to have Bob Brown, who's a former, well, he's actually co-founder of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in the United States. Really interesting and important historical figure in social justice issues in the United States and abroad. He's going to be with us tomorrow afternoon in an event, which if you'd like to, you can follow on our live stream. We are here in The Hague. We are a coastal city, and between us, the city of The Hague, and the sea are these beautiful dunes. It's quite a special, it's a national park. There are wildlife which roam around there. Nothing dangerous, as far as I understand, but some deer, some long-haired cows, wild cows, some sheep. It's a lovely environment. Do explore also the surroundings of The Hague. We encourage our students to explore the surroundings of The Hague, not just to stick to the universities which they're traveling between, but also to explore the natural environment. So with that, unless there's anything more you'd like to add, we're open.
Yeah, I think in sports every Saturday, Sunday evening. So the sports lovers, yes. We have fun every Sunday evening. So just to add that.
Yeah, that's an important thing to mention. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, so we're open to your questions if you have any for us.
Yes, Jeff, we have, and Vitus, thank you very much for the presentation. Again, a very detailed presentation, so the questions are also limited. There's like 8 questions coming from students. The first question is maybe, I don't know, maybe to Vitus, maybe. Okay. Where do you suggest students to stay? Because you'll be traveling in different places throughout your time here. Where is a convenient place to stay?
It will be convenient to stay in The Hague, because we just traveled to Leiden and then Erasmus for term 1 and term 2. After term 2, most of your classes will be held in Delft and at ISS, which is in The Hague. So it will be advisable to live in The Hague.
Okay. Yeah. And did you find your own accommodation, or was it something that ISS arranged for you?
ISS arranged my accommodation because I'm under the OKP scholarship, so everything was arranged by ISS.
Okay, thank you very much, Vitus, for the answer. Maybe this one is something for Jeff, maybe also Vitus, you can butt in. The possibility of finding for an internship. Do students need to do an internship? Are they allowed to do it? And is it easy to find an internship position? Is there sufficient time to do an internship? Maybe, maybe Jeff can.
That's a good question. I mean, I am a firm believer in experiential learning. I do think that's a really important part of the learning process. Do you need to do an internship? No, it's not a requirement. Some study programs do have it as part of the requirements. Is it allowed? Yes, but we do counsel for students to be very careful not to take on too much. So it's important that expectations be clear amongst the student, amongst those offering the internship, so that you don't get yourself caught in a situation where the demands between the internship, those providing the internship, and your studies are in tension with each other. That would not be a good situation. Yeah. Is it easy to find an internship? There are lots of organizations involved in migration, certainly. So there are the possibilities of doing that. Easy, I would say no, but is it unrealistic? No, it's not unrealistic. There are possibilities of doing so. And many students, particularly if they're writing a research paper on a topic which is of relevance to what that internship would provide, find that the internship gives them a lot of empirical basis, empirical content to go into their research paper. So for example, a student last year, Mizanur, you met him just before he left, he did an internship which was very productive. Indeed, his whole research paper focused on that internship experience. And that was really quite a special dimension of his study program.
Yeah, and even we get opportunities from guest lectures, just like Peace and Justice.
Yes.
These are organizations in migration, and we get the opportunity to interact with them. So it's not so difficult to get an internship. The problem is it's not also too practical to do it because of the traveling around we have to do with this tract. So it's a matter of time, how to allot time between internship and then studies. So it's really very challenging to combine the two. Yeah.
But timing might also be a part of it as well. If you could find, say, a shorter internship that was taking place in, say, term 3.
Yeah.
Term 3 for the migration students, the GMD students, is relatively light in comparison with the other terms.
Yes, that's true.
So between, say, April and June would be, a good time to do it.
So at the latter part, by then you're also familiar with the studies and then the workload involved, so you can manage time better than third.
You'd also probably, you should have a pretty good idea about what you're going to be writing a research paper on as well. So that could also help identify an organization which would be relevant for your research paper project.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hope
Thank
that
you.
answered your question.
Yeah, very much. Thank you, Vitus, as well. This is a question for Vitus, maybe. What kind of activities occurs in class? Because you're traveling you're traveling to Rotterdam, you're traveling to Delft. How is the class environment like? Will you be joining students from Delft as well, or from different universities coming to Delft, or Delft students going to Erasmus University?
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain a little bit more.
So the track is made up of students from Delft, students from Leiden, students from Erasmus, and then students from ISS. Basically from the various specialities from these 4 universities. So the history students come from Leiden, the sociology and public administration students come from Erasmus, and the architecture, social inequality students come from Delft. So when we come together, we it's kind of rotational. So we start from ISS and then Erasmus, we move to Leiden, and then we end up at Delft and then ISS. So that's how it is. It doesn't crisscross. It's rotational. So
okay. Thank you, Vitus. Another question is about assignments.
Yeah.
What kind of assignments do you get? How are you? Do you have tests? Is there group assignments that you have to work with?
Yes, we do a mix. Yeah, some of them are we hand in papers. Some of them are group work. Some of them are reflections from the site visits. Some of them are exams that we write. But the good thing is that we do one block at a time, so you don't have a lot of them mixing up at the same time. Yeah. So for instance, when we're at Leiden, we handed in a paper on history of migration, and that was it. So we don't go back to Leiden, and then we'll move on to. So it's a combination of assessments from the various universities. But just to assure you that classes are really participatory, and then you will enjoy them a lot. It's mixed methods, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Vitus. One last question for Vitus, and then there's 2 more questions for Jeff. For Vitus, how is it traveling? Do you pay your own traveling costs?
Yes, we pay, but luckily for us, all our traveling costs is reimbursed.
Okay.
Everything is reimbursed. So I'll advise you that when you come, you get this card, OV-chip card. You can apply for a personalized one where you get to have a 40% discount on the card on off-peak hours and then during weekends. Luckily for us, most of our lectures are done during off-peak hours, so we get a 40% discount on the card. But when you come, you hand it in, and then every cost will be reimbursed.
Yeah. Thank you, Vitus. Now, for Jeff, 2 questions. The first question is, can you take a subject outside the major of GMD? That means, for example, an optional course in environmental studies, for example.
Yeah, certainly you can.
Yeah.
The causes of migration, the dynamics around migration intersect with other programs that we study in the other aspects of our MA Development Studies program. So we mentioned, for example, securitization. This is a topic that is highly relevant to migration. But environmental studies, certainly climate change is something which is very much behind a lot of migration nowadays. So there is a very sort of strong research program on looking at issues around climate change, and our teaching program also offers various courses which allow one to study the different dynamics around threats to the environment and the possibilities for adaptation and mitigating the circumstances in which climate change is taking place. So yes, it's absolutely possible to take other specializations.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Now there's one more question that came in.
Okay.
About specialization. If you do specialize in something, do you have to write a thesis based on the specialization?
Good question. If you want to get that formal specialization, there are some requirements. There are course requirements. For example, one of our students last year, Crystal, she was following the migration master's track, and she decided that she wanted to specialize in human rights. So she had the degree, which is the governance of migration and development, and she had a specialization in human rights, which required her to take 2 human rights courses, and her thesis had to be on some human rights topic. Obviously, that's rather broad. So it doesn't need to be so contained, but the idea of doing a specialization is that you end up with topics that really do fit together quite nicely. So it's arguably a more coherent program. It is maybe a little bit more restricted than on the con side, in the sense that you do have more requirements and less scope to study things that just fascinate you. But then the plus side being that there will be more coherence, and something which is very much affirmed in your diploma, which is that you have the specialization in human rights in this case. But there can be other specializations as well that you can follow.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Last question about career options.
Yeah.
What are my career options after I have graduated from the Governance and Migration Diversity track?
Well, I would like that some of the career options didn't exist, but we live in a real world which is defined by borders, which is defined by a whole range of different border control measures. We teach human security as a core focus, core preoccupation of the Migration and Development course. And the idea there is that if you are a border control official, it's very important also to have a human security understanding to what it is that defines your work and can help inform a different approach to work, to one's work as a border control official, other than one which is premised on state security alone, enforcing the law. So I mentioned earlier in this webinar that we had 6 colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
They are recruiting people within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and indeed one of the students from the GMD program is now doing her internship with the Migration and Development section at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The possibilities of that potentially leading to a career either in the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs or in another Ministry of Foreign Affairs in her country or in another country in her country is possible, obviously. But yes, it's important for us to be grounded in the realities of our time and not just exploring the theoretical questions. There are many NGOs which are devoted to issues around migration, think tanks, and indeed some of our students may well pursue an academic career. The academic field, the academic area of migration is pretty wide. It's hard to say that there's really migration studies as such, because there's so many different entry points to that scholarship around migration. But yes, there could be a possibility of pursuing an academic career as well. So yes, lots of different career options, and they intersect with what we're teaching here, but they also are a place where we pragmatically situate ourselves when we're teaching here at the ISS and at other participating institutions.
Vitus, what do you plan to do after you graduated from the migration track? Do you plan to go home? Do you plan to do something here?
I plan to go home. Yes, because I have an interest in return migration. So I want to go in and work around issues of integration, because most of the African countries don't have integration policies. So that's an area that I'm really interested in, going back to effect change. Wow.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vitus, and thank you, Jeff, for your time and also the
Thank you for joining us.
thorough explanation about in September.
Yeah.
So with that, I would like to end the webinar session on the governance and migration and diversity track, and we look forward to seeing all of you who have registered and got admitted to the track in September. Thank you very much. Jeff, anything last things to say? Maybe Vitus? No? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry about a lot of things. Once you get here, everything will fall in place, and then we'll be there to support you. And then
in the meantime, if you have any questions about the content of the program, logistics around studying between all these different institutions, or any other matter, please don't hesitate to contact us. We're here for you. So,
Well, thank you.